Let me tell you a story that, honestly, even now feels a little wild to say out loud, because sometimes the line between tragedy and justice is thinner than you'd ever believe. And the people who start off as your worst obstacles can end up making your story unforgettable. You know what I mean? If you'd walked the halls of Mount Sinai Hospital that summer, you'd have heard whispers about this young black doctor, Andre Santos, 27, sharp as a tack, heart of gold, but walking around every day with this invisible weight on his shoulders. And not because of his stethoscope. It started the morning Dr. Catherine Wellington's voice cut through the fifth-floor hallway like a blade. Are you sure this young man should be taking care of our most important patient? The young man, of course, was Andre, standing at the door to room 312, taking a deep breath like he'd done 100 times before. He knew what was waiting for him behind that door, and it wasn't just the patient. See, Victoria Blackwood, 25, heiress to one of the largest real estate fortunes in the country, had been in a coma for 4 months after some yachting accident. Blonde, beautiful, rich, the kind of family that treated hospital staff like background scenery, especially if you didn't fit the picture. Andre, who'd hustled his way from a tough neighborhood into a full scholarship at Johns Hopkins, never let it show how much those little comments stung. But let me back up a sec, because the real story here isn't just about prejudice or even about a medical miracle. It's about what happens when somebody who's used to being judged, Andre, ends up being the only person in the room willing to really see someone else. Every morning, Andre came in and talked to Victoria. He changed her bandages, checked her vitals, read the smallest signs, a flutter of an eyelid, a change in her breathing. He noticed things other doctors just breezed past. "Good morning, Victoria," he'd say, like she could hear him. "I know you're in there." What he didn't know was she really was. She'd been awake, trapped for weeks. She heard it all, the compliments Andre never got, the snide comments about the black doctor, the way her own family discussed her like she was a broken piece of furniture. For the first time in her life, Victoria was learning what it meant to be powerless, to be talked about and not to point. One morning, while Andre was quietly checking her eyes, her mother, Margaret Blackwood, swept in like royalty with her son Richard and, of course, Dr. Wellington right behind. Signs that other doctors with more experience have missed? How convenient. The room froze. Andre, calm as ever, explained, "Victoria's showing signs of consciousness. I think she's more aware than anyone realizes." The Blackwoods bristled. Dr. Wellington dismissed him with a wave. Maybe he'd be better suited to less critical patients. But what nobody knew, except maybe Victoria, was that Andre wasn't going to just walk away. After they forced him off the case, he started documenting everything, every sign, every change, every moment that proved Victoria was coming back. He called his old mentor, Dr. James Wilson, a legend in neurology. They went over the data together. "You've got to get this to the medical board," Wilson said. Andre just nodded. "And I want the press there too. If they're going to take me down for doing my job, I'm taking the whole system with me." Meanwhile, the Blackwoods, desperate for control, pressured Dr. Harrison, the replacement doctor, to try new, risky procedures to wake up Victoria. None of them saw the danger. Only Andre did. At night, slipping back into the hospital with help from nurses who respected him, he started using subtle techniques to communicate with Victoria, hand squeezes, light patterns, anything that might let her answer. The night Victoria squeezed his hand back? Yeah, that was the night everything changed. The day of the big showdown, the auditorium was packed. Dr. Harrison, Margaret, Richard, all sitting up front, ready to sign off on whatever risky treatment would look best in a press release. Andre entered cool, collected, flanked by Dr. Wilson, Dr. Patricia Reese from the medical board, and, to everyone's shock, a TV crew from a national investigative show. He laid it all out, the ignored signs, the suspicious payments, the prejudice. Then, for the kicker, he broadcast a live video from Victoria's room, where she sat up in bed, awake, speaking, very much alive and well. The silence that followed? You could hear hearts breaking and reputations crumbling in real time. Victoria spoke, her voice steady, cutting through years of privilege and arrogance. "For months I was conscious, but helpless. I saw what real care looks like. Dr. Santos didn't just save my life, he saved my dignity. My family nearly killed me because they wouldn't listen to the doctor who saw me as a person." Andre got promoted on the spot. Dr. Harrison was suspended. And the Blackwoods, well, let's just say the legal and financial reckoning wasn't pretty. But here's the twist you didn't see coming. 6 months later, Mount Sinai was transformed. The new neurology protocols Andre pioneered, based on seeing every patient as fully human, became the gold standard. Victoria, no longer just an heiress, became his partner in founding the Santos Blackwood Foundation, dedicated to fighting discrimination in medicine. They won their first big case for a wrongfully terminated Hispanic doctor, plowing that money right back into scholarships for kids like Andre once was. Dr. Harrison, selling medical equipment out in the sticks, living with the knowledge that his own arrogance cost him everything. Margaret Blackwood, fines, investigations, a mansion that felt more like a prison. Richard, off somewhere in Europe, hiding from scandal. The Blackwood name? Let's just say, nobody was bragging about it at the country club anymore. But the real win, the thing that made Andre smile as he walked the halls, was seeing young doctors from every background thriving. Competence has no color, gender, or last name, read the new plaque in the conference room. The same room where Andre once had to explain himself just to get in the door. When he gave the keynote at the National Congress of Neurology, the same crowd that used to doubt him hung on every word. True strength isn't about revenge, he told them. It's about building something better. About being so good they can't ignore you. Victoria watched from the front row, tears in her eyes, knowing she'd witnessed something you don't see every day, the moment justice stops being just a word and starts changing lives. So if you're still with me, think about this. What would you do in Andre's place? Would you walk away? Or would you fight to change the whole system? Drop your thoughts below, because the line between injustice and transformation is yours to draw. And who knows, maybe your comment will inspire the next story that changes everything. Let me pick up where we left off, because you'd think a story like that would end with justice served and everyone riding off into the sunset, right? But, real life rarely wraps up that meat. Especially not when the same hospital that turned its back on Andre and Victoria now has their portraits up on the wall, as if none of that ugly business ever happened. Funny thing sometimes, the fight for change isn't over just because the bad guys got caught. Sometimes, that's when the real work starts. 6 months after that legendary expose, the Santos Blackwood Foundation was running at full speed. Andre was splitting his time between transforming Mount Sinai's neurology department and overseeing investigations into discrimination cases all over the country. Victoria, meanwhile, was fielding requests from hospitals, schools, even government agencies, all wanting to hear her speak about surviving, not just a coma, but a system rigged against people like Andre. But, yeah, change comes with backlash. A handful of powerful old guard doctors, let's call them the old lions, started quietly pushing back. They didn't like having their authority challenged, especially by a young black neurologist and a woman who used to be just the patient. Anonymous complaints about Andre's aggressive reforms landed on the board's desk every week. Some donors threatened to pull funding unless tradition was respected. Suddenly, Andre and Victoria weren't just fighting prejudice. They were up against a whole network determined to drag them back into the shadows. The twist? One night, Andre's car was broken into outside the hospital. All they took was a laptop, the one with years of confidential case notes and foundation documents. Andre shrugged it off, at least in front of his team. If they think a stolen laptop is going to stop us, they're dreaming. But inside, he felt the old anxiety, that gnawing fear that comes from being hunted for just doing the right thing. Meanwhile, Victoria found herself invited to an exclusive charity gala hosted by the American Hospital Association. The guest list read like a who's who of medicine and money. When she got there, she quickly realized why she was invited. Margaret Blackwood, out of seclusion, was making her comeback. Word was, the Blackwoods were starting a rival foundation, and Margaret was quietly telling everyone that Victoria had been brainwashed by Andre, that her daughter's memory was still foggy from her coma. Let me back up a sec. Victoria told Andre when she called him that night. You ever get the feeling someone's trying to erase the truth you nearly died for? Andre just laughed, but his voice was tight. If they want to fight, they pick the wrong people. Things escalated. Suddenly, Victoria was hit with a lawsuit from her own family, Margaret and Richard, accusing her of defamation, claiming she'd fabricated the whole story about being conscious during the coma. It made headlines. Talk shows debated whether Victoria was a hero or just another rich kid playing victim. The foundation's phones rang nonstop, donors asking if they should pull support, staff worried about their jobs. Andre was furious, but Victoria? She surprised everyone. Instead of hiding, she went public, live interview, national TV, no script, no PR team. I know what it feels like to be silenced. I won't let it happen again. I live the truth. If anyone doubts it, they can look me in the eye and ask. The outpouring of support was bigger than anyone expected. Survivors of medical neglect, doctors of color, patients who'd felt invisible all started sharing their stories online, tagging the foundation, telling the world, me too. But there was another twist coming. Dr. Harrison, disgraced and unemployed, reached out anonymously. At first, Andre almost deleted the email until he read the line, "I have proof your foundation is being sabotaged from inside Mount Sinai." Harrison had dug up emails, phone recordings, evidence that one of the hospital's senior administrators was leaking confidential information, trying to undermine everything Andre and Victoria had built. For the first time, Andre and Victoria faced the prospect that their greatest threat wasn't just public humiliation or legal trouble, but betrayal from someone they trusted. They worked quietly, investigating, compiling evidence, and finally, they confronted the administrator, Dr. Reynolds, who confessed to everything when shown the proof. Andre wanted to fire him on the spot, but Victoria held him back. Let's go public, not just to punish him, but to show everyone exactly how this system works. If we cover it up, we're no better than them. They made their findings public, another press conference, more headlines, another storm. But this time, the backlash didn't stick. People rallied, not just for Andre and Victoria, but for the idea that corruption and prejudice lose their power when you drag them into the light. The final scene, Mount Sinai's new mentoring program. Full of young residents from backgrounds nobody in the old days would have hired, Andre watching as Victoria led a seminar on patient rights. The two of them stood at the back for a moment, just listening. Andre, quiet, said, "Sometimes I wonder if any of this really matters, or if the next generation will just repeat the same mistakes." Victoria smiled, a little tired, a little proud. Maybe they will. But maybe one of these kids sees us and decides to fight harder. Maybe that's enough. So now I gotta ask you, where do you stand when the fight gets dirty? When the old guard fights back, when the truth gets twisted, when even your allies aren't who you thought? Is it worth pushing forward, knowing you might lose everything, just for a shot at real change? Let me know in the comments what you do, because this story isn't over. And neither is the fight for justice.